Hi individuals, I'm Birdie Ray. In the last episode, I talked about what causes individuals to get cold sores and what can trigger the symptoms. Then today, let's move to a kind of relevant topic, why I get sick. This time I'm not going to talk about the medical aspect, but focus on this question as a whole with you. You may hear this question from your own mouth or your surroundings when an individual is suffering from a certain disease. This one may want to ask this question. Rather than a question, for me, I think it's more like an emotional expression of sadness, of confusion, or even anger. Whichever individual is being asked this question, I think it may be fate that is really being asked. And of course, it is impossible for the time to go backward, so I use the term fate here. Once me myself asked this question for many times, especially when I was in my depressive episode. I didn't understand why I could be depressed. I often thought I was very lucky to have a loving family and many close friends. One of the times I mentioned in the previous video was January 2020. At that time, I was writing an essay on climate human rights, and I collapsed. Well, I think I was incredibly fortunate to study on a major that I was really interested about and eager to gain new insights from it, instead of a major which could help me to get a better CV or a better job in the future. So, which is even more rare is that I could study on a topic I care about again and again. I fully understand that some individuals who suffering from many difficulties in their life could be depressed, could have depression, but am I qualified for it? Now, first of all, I must ask you not to take any of the above statements as fact. They were just thoughts that came to me during my depressive episode. I realized later in life that that actually revealed a fact that I hadn't faced up to the frustrations and pain I had experienced in my life, at least not until that time point. I mean, in January 2020. I desperately wanted to believe that my sufferings was not damaging enough. But even it is truly not solid enough for every individual to think that I am tragic. Could I at least pity myself for what I had gone through and say to myself, it's been tough, it's been a hard ride? That's January. I broke a teapot which I had used for a long time and a mug that I loved. They were items I brought from my hometown to Britain to give my new university, my new residence, something me. I was heartbroken when I broke the teapot and I blamed myself for it. When the mug was broke apart in the middle, I was emotionally numb. In my head, I questioned my fate. Not only my cherished friends becoming distant from me, could I not even keep my stuff? That January, I went to see the counselor for the first time. I told the counselor that in the past 3 or 4 years in a row, I had experienced a gradual loss of relationship with a cherished friend every January, and this year was no exception. I said we used to be very close friends who had a lot in common, but maybe because the friend was busy with work or whatever, the messages replied to me suddenly became colder and I felt abandoned. After hearing what I said, the counselor gently asked me a question with a smile on her face. If I were to ask your friend now if you were still friends, would I get an answer no? I subconsciously denied that. And it dawned on me that since I was aware that we were still friends and I knew that the friend might only be busy with the work and I was not only not able to be replied as often and as enthusiastically as before, I was not abandoned. I wished I could stop thinking about abandonment. This year I realized that my reaction may be called rejection sensitivity disorder, RSD, and I will discuss about this in the future later. As I learned more about depression, I guess I was lucky enough to receive cognitive behavior therapy that I needed most at that time. And perhaps I was even luckier that the question from the counselor opened my mind. And I realized later, at the same day, that I may got some wrong logical sequence of things. What I realized was that I had not been dragged into emotional abyss because of the broken teapot and mug, but I had broken them because my hands was trembling slightly for some time, which inevitably caused me to have trouble holding things. And this is the manifestation, the physical manifestation of depression. It is not that I'm depressed because something happens. It is that I am depressed that makes something happen or makes me feel that way. As a naturally allergic individual, my allergens were always changing. Something that I am allergic to in 1 year may no longer be my allergens in the following year, and I may be allergic to something else. I was so obsessed with finding the why of my depression, like finding my allergens, and I want to have some why that I can actually avoid. I think that maybe if they don't happen to me or I don't encounter them, I won't fall into a depression abyss. But is this the case? Can my obsession really lead me to a safe, joyful, and peaceful route? I don't deny all situations because I have a friend who has been in depressive state because of a specific event and was very lucky to get treatment in time and never had another depression. But for me, it wasn't like that. I wasn't hit by a specific major event, but was slowly eroded and eventually unable to control myself. Is there really one or some whys for me? Or do I really need to find this whys, and if I do, I will be rescued? No. Let us turn our attention from depression to other diseases. Must two individuals who live in the same environment and do every same things from birth to death have all the same disease and lose their teeth and hairs at the same time? I'm not talking about genes either. Even if each individual cannot determine the environment of their birth, the expression of genes is not guaranteed either. Sometimes the why is just nowhere to be found. Since I didn't ask the fate why I was born with more allergies than my classmates and friends, and why I was sick so often since I was a child, I didn't really need to ask for what reason I was depressed. So I no longer devote a single energy to question the fate, why I get sick. Moreover, why could this happen to other individuals but not to me? Is there a specific reason for this as well? And since I have sought medical help as soon as possible for other illness I have had in the past, I should also take the initiative to seek the treatment for my depression. The test of the fate did not end here. Actually, this is only the beginning of my journey of self-healing. As you can see from my previously released video, I didn't start taking the medication of depression until August 2022. In the time between, I stopped asking the question why I get sick, but I kept getting sick.